early childhood development. Each week we talk about a different stage of children development and what children need. And now, here comes your host.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back. My name is Taryn, and you are listening to The Parenting. This week's episode is titled It Takes a Village. I was inspired to do this episode from two different places, and I thought it would be a good episode to run with. Indulge me as we do a young story time so I can tell you why I am doing this episode. The first place that the idea was inspired from was I was watching an episode of my favorite TV show, This Is Us. And if you have not watched This Is Us, please do. It is amazing. It is amazing. But that's not the point. So, just a little bit of a backstory, and I guess a spoiler alert for those who have not seen the show. There is a couple who have had two kids. One child has special needs, and the second baby they have just adopted. Given the COVID pandemic, the dad lost his job, and the mom, who was a stay at home mom, just got a job. So their roles have been reversed. This basically was a culture shock for the dad, and he is having such a rough time adjusting to being a full-time dad, adjusting to being with his children all day, every day, adjusting to learning to meet each need of each child because their needs are so very different. So he takes the kids out on a little play date outing to the park, and he is having a little chat with one of the other mommies who are at the play date. Basically, he says that it is a lot on him. Like, he shares how much of a toll this has taken on him, how much of an adjustment it has been, and then goes on to say, I love my children. Don't get me wrong. I really, really love my children, but I don't want to be around them 24 hours a day. It's a lot. And that just sparked so much in me. The second conversation that I had very recently that led to me doing this episode was with a friend of mine. My amazing therapist has put together a curriculum for a basic online parenting workshop, which I have just started facilitating. I currently am testing my facilitation skills with four of my friends. In one of our sessions, I presented an image titled The Ideal Parenting Image. The picture has two parents in it. My friend challenged me on it because they are single parents that do this on their own, and there was no dispute from me at all. I 100% agreed that there are parents that do this on their own. But I also said to her that while they do it on their own, is it fair that they have to do it on their own? And are they genuinely able to meet every need of their child without feeling an immense amount of pressure that leads them to not being okay? I am yet to meet a single parent that is 100% okay doing 100% of the work by themselves. It is not feasible. It is not possible. And that's why I am doing this episode. The African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child is true. It really does take a village. I am doing this episode as a parent preservation episode to remind moms and dads, whether it is a two-parent household or a single-parent household, that they are important, their needs are important, and when their needs are not met and they are not okay, the repercussions on the child, if the parent is not okay, can be catastrophic. Children have needs that need to be met on 5 different channels. So often there is so much focus on 2 of the channels that the other 3 get neglected, and this is what causes damage and neglect and abuse in a child. These are the roots. So the 5 channels that I'm talking about is the financial channel, an emotional channel, a social channel, physical, mental, and spiritual. And children need these needs to be met on every aspect. The two that are mainly focused on is their physical needs and their financial needs. Often, the emotional, mental, and spiritual needs are not met. In most households, especially single parent households, it is understandable that so much emphasis and concentration is put on the financial and physical needs of the child because you need money to be able to feed a child. You need money to be able to clothe a child. You need money to be able to keep a roof over the child's head. You need money for a child's education. Like, I get that that is important, and this is where the village comes in because for the needs that you cannot focus on, as far as possible, there should be somebody else that can help you meet the other needs of a child consistently. A village can consist of your friends and family, your child's grandparents, babysitters, teachers, other mothers that are going through what you're going through, and the list goes on. Building and creating a village is not an easy task given that everybody has their lives and people are busy with what they are busy with, and it is often very difficult for parents to verbalize and admit that they need help. This is what this episode is about, just to encourage people to be able to be vulnerable and being able to ask for help from friends and family, to be able to say that they are not coping with the pressures of parenthood, because the reality is that it is not an easy job. It's important to be able to set pride aside when you see that you aren't coping, when you see that you are suffering, and as a result, your child is suffering. Important to note that there is no shame in asking for help. There is something called toxic shaming that parents who are under duress end up doing to their children, and basically it's transferring their own pain onto their child when they cannot meet the need or they are emotionally unable to give the child what they need. They project these feelings onto the child, and both they suffer and their child suffers because of it. And that's why just finding a village, just finding a support system, creating one if friends and family is not an option, is so important to do. If you already have a village, that is amazing. And I'm going to talk about things in a little bit that can help you keep communication channels open with the people who are your village and just be able to maintain a peaceful and harmonious mutual agreement with the people who are helping you with your child or children. I realize that throughout the episode I've been talking about a child, but I know that there are families with multiple children, so this applies across the board. If you do not yet have a support system, if you do not yet have a village, I do encourage you to approach your nearest and dearest. I do encourage you to go to them and say, are you able to help me? Are you able to watch the kids sometimes? Are you able to just avail yourself to help me raise my children? I am so sure that your friends and family would be more than willing to and more than able to help you in that. I also realize that there are people who don't have access to their families because they live abroad. I also realize that not everybody comes from a close knit family that you are able to approach. So that would be a challenge. But that's where your friends come in. That's the village that you choose. That's the village that you build. And those are the people who help you when it's most needed. There are people I know that don't have a friends or family option, but this is a great opportunity to get creative. There are other people out there that are able to help, that can exchange with you, to have a mutual relationship where you help each other. And it takes a lot of patience to build relationships like that. So I want to encourage you not to give up in building your community if your friends and family are not an option. I also want to talk about some ways and ideas to keep communication channels open and consistent with the people who are helping you with your children. It's so important to remember that people think differently than you do and that people's value systems are differently than you do. So it to assume that they would do things the way you would approve is unrealistic. It is so important to communicate with them and to make your requirements known, to know what you do allow with your children and what you would like them to refrain from. A small example will be to like what they feed your children. If you are very conscious about health and you don't allow your children any candies or cakes or chips or anything like that, and you don't mention that, they might just take for granted that it's okay to spoil your child for a little, like give a little treat, and that could cause some friction and some tension. So it's important to make your requirements known, to let them know what you are okay with and what you are not okay with. Constant communication about your expectations, making your expectations known with your community, with your village, is also important because it's ever changing. As people grow and as people experience life, their views change. And so, communicating constantly when you change your mind on something or when you've learned something that you would like them to implement while they are taking care of your children is very important. So, I would encourage you to communicate consistently, let them know where you are at, let them know what you need from them, but also to be flexible, because they may say, I understand that you are, again, with a food example, I understand that you are conscious about health, but please allow me to give them one treat because I'll be treating my children too. And I wouldn't want your children to not get a treat and see that my children are getting a treat. And then you could be flexible and compromise and say, okay, but please make their portions a little less, or only this one time, or just to find mutual ground, to be flexible, to compromise, so that there is a mutual understanding. Also, be very sure that you know the people and you've built a relationship with the people that will be helping you, the people that will be your village, because you want your child or your children to be in a comfortable, secure, and safe environment. You need peace of mind that when you are away, your children are okay, and the children need that too. So, again, it's a twofold thing. All these things are so important for the development of your children. And I will go back to those channels just to briefly touch on why it's important. If we look at the social channel, there are studies that show that when a child has a sense of community and a sense of belonging in a family or in a communal foundation, they are less likely to end up destitute. They are less likely to end up addicted or poverty stricken. They are less likely to be diagnosed with a mental illness or incarcerated. And they are more likely to be stable, to be confident, and to be ambitious. If you look at an emotional channel, it's so important for a child to feel secure. It is important for a child to feel seen. It is important for a child to feel heard. Often, when parents are stressed out, they are unable to meet the emotional needs of their children. But when they are with a grandparent or a friend, they get the attention that they need. So it may not come from you, but they do get what they need. We've touched on physical needs. We know that a child needs to eat. A child needs to have a roof over their head. A child needs to be clothed. Mentally, it's important to have a village so that your child can be challenged intellectually, having conversations with people who are not just you, seeing how other homes operate, seeing how other people interact with each other, other families interact with each other. There's so much observation that goes in. And from a spiritual perspective, this is where they learn morals and how to conduct themselves and have a belief system in a power higher than them. So having a parent is important, yes, and there's nobody in the world that has a greater influence on a child than a parent. For most people in therapy, they are in therapy because of a parent or both parents. That's where the most issues arise. So it is important to try as far as possible, as much as possible, even when you cannot be the one to meet the needs, to have a village around your children that can. This benefits you as a parent, takes a lot of pressure off of you, but it also is so beneficial for your child. And that, everybody, is what It Takes a Village is all about. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Thank Thank you for tuning into the parenting. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you have any questions, feedback, or content suggestions, please email us at taryn@theparenting.com. Please remember to subscribe, like, share, and give my aunt a 5-star rating. Come back again next week.